Hey, and good evening. This is Tiger. Welcome to my stream, last stream of the year 2025. Good evening, AJ. Thank you for your good evening greetings in the chat. Last stream hype. Yeah, the last stream in the year 2025, the year that. Yeah, for the year, obviously. Over half they there. Yes, we got 10 out of 20 subs for this goal. Thanks to Akura most of the time. Ayo, Ahoy, CD Raider, and AJ subscribed at tier 1 and they have been subscribed for 28 months. This is amazing. Thank you, AJ, for the ongoing support. Thank you, CD Raider. Thank you both for supporting me as ambassadors, as moderators during my streams and everywhere else. Yeah, 2025 was the year that saw me becoming a DTG ambassador. Interesting experience. A lot of other things happened in 2025 that might not have been expected that way. Some of them more meaningful than that. Me being an ambassador means I got a lot of DLC keys and game keys from DTG, especially when they supported me in my switch from the Epic Game Store to Steam when there were the problem with the Epic Game Store after the release of Train Sim World 6. So the two DLCs that I'm playing tonight, Arosa and Berninalinie, I got them for my own money on the Epic Game Store. I cannot recall whether I got the versions on Steam for my own money. At any rate, the game key for Train Sim World 6 is from Dovetail Games, but nevertheless, what I'm telling you is always unfiltered and, well, judge for yourself from what you hear on my stream. The last stream in the year typically takes us into the Alps with a lot of snow that we do not have at the moment in real life, but that we might get in January. I hope that we don't get that much of it, that we actually can't go to and come back safely from our retreat over New Year's Eve. Anyway, in the game, the snow is so beautiful, and you can see it here as Ospizio Bernina on the Bernina line. Started a random scenario here because I liked the atmosphere here in the night with the light, with slight snow, where we're not playing. And snow is beautiful in real life too, AJ, yes. You know that I love the snow, and Kara loves the snow, and both of us love running around in the snow, especially when it is fallen freshly. And we can just run through it. Nevertheless, I don't want to play those two lines at night. I want you to be able to see things, so this is why I picked two services in the morning. We're going from Chur up the line to Arosa, and then we jump into our helicopter and switch to Ospizio Bernina, and we are driving downwards to Tirano in Italia. The helicopter city radar. Oh, well, that is for your imagination, actually. Guess who just got 100,000 points? Oh, amazing. 100,000 channel points. That is amazing. I hope you will invest them wisely and not force me to use that. At any rate, not today. Congratulations, says AJ. Wonderful. So the first thing that we are going to do is to go to Arosa. I think I already turned it on, what I wanted to do. On the Arosalinie, what is an oldish route that was already from the pre-Train Sim World 2 era, I think. We have 3 timetables actually. The original timetable, Arosa line timetable, and then we got the anniversary collection with the Christmas jingle services. Spectre is still recovering from the stream with the jingle in the car when we were running down from Arosa to Chur. And then there is a 3rd timetable that comes with 1 vehicle pack, and you can see it if we pick that, the GE442 that is used exclusively on the Arosa line, comes with different liveries, especially with this 622 Hakone Tozan livery, and also a couple of different anniversary liveries connected with the particular locos that are also given here, the 630, 627 and so on. And the 622 is the Hakone locomotive that has been named after a railway in Japan that the Rätische Bahn in Graubünden is collaborating with. They have a partnership actually running since 1912, more or less, when supposedly a Japanese engineer visited the Berninalinie in Switzerland at the time, and then used experience gathered while he was at Switzerland while building the railway in Hakone Tozan. What is also an interesting railway that we might want to have at some point in time in Transim World 6. It is located in a mountainous area. If you forgive me for not being super exact, it's more or less halfway between Tokyo and Mount Fuji. So in the southwest of Tokyo, Kanagawa province, close to the sea. And this is a railway that takes you up the hill, first in a narrow gauge railway, I think, then on a regular gauge railway, and then you can even get into a cable car to go further on. And we have this cooperation or collaboration partnership with the Swiss. So let's open our doors on the right side. We're flying not at night, no. Typically if you load in the service you have some kind of an inverted view. If you're playing at night you have a light background if you're playing during day. Then the other way around. Do I need to do anything more? Got to close my doors again. Put the reverser to neutral. I already turned on the safety systems. Oh, I actually closed the doors prematurely. Still have to load the passengers a bit. Now I can lock them. Headlight selector 3 is normal beams. Loco service needs to be, loco brake needs to be released. Also the vacuum brakes need to be released. Signal has switched to green and we can actually go. Can open the window a bit for more sound. And you might remember you have this bumper car style acceleration in those locomotives. And a cruise control system that allows you to put your speed selector wheel into the position. That quite reliably holds the speed for you, especially if you're running uphill. Running downhill, you need to use the brakes. That's not the thing. What you might notice is that we don't get volumetric fog in this DLC. I think it is just too old. At least I've never managed to see volumetric fog on Arosa. And this locomotive celebrates the partnership. With the Hakone Tozan Railway. Passing the stops in Chur. We should have used the rear view mirrors because we are at the beginning technically a tramway. So we need to have our rear view mirrors and not before we leave Chur. We switch into a proper railway. Limit will increase to 25 soonish. We have to pass the sign completely with our train as usual, which should have happened now, so we can accelerate. Let's check the signals so that we don't run into any problems. Sometimes we have to wait for the signals to clear. We are not getting any warning signals as long as we are a tramway. We are expected to react to a red signal up front. That one is green though. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going into the rising sun and to Arosa. That signal is green too. That means we can pass. The signal underneath is for the track that comes out of the sidings here. Sand sidings. Increase to 30 announced. You can see the cat's ears that indicate that the speed is actually rising, the speed limit is rising. So we're passing the power station. When exiting Chur here. You can see the power lines coming in. Later on we will pass another facility that belongs to this hydroelectric power plant. a whistle board underneath the signal that tells us that we can pass. And here we're actually leaving the area where we are a tramway. You can see the sign here at the same time that the speed limit ends, so we can accelerate to 33 kilometers per hour. What is also a notch in our wheel. And we can retract the rear view mirrors. Driving uphill on these lines is always much more relaxing than driving downhill, because we don't have to manage the speed. We can use the cruise control more or less. Downhill we always have to manage the vacuum brakes and the electric brake in the changing gradient. Our first stop will be at Lüen-Castiel. But we still have a bit to go. Before that we will pass a passing area called Untersax. What is a tricky one, because you see the signals quite late. Nice thing about the Arosalinie is that you can really drive according to the speed boards that are shown to you. That is the thing with the Berninalinie. As beautiful as it is, the speed boards, especially when driving uphill, are really not in a good shape. But on Arosa, most of it is actually good. There are one or two errors, but most of it you can rely on. And I think the trees close to you look really nice. Even though it is an old DLC under Trains in World 6. With the lighting, with the snow on the foliage. Also the track rendering improved a lot here. Trees and the mountains in the distance, well, it depends. Like this, you can live with it. Sometimes they are really quite blotchy. eye adaptation at its finest. Now we're getting closer to this passing area at Untersax. First we traverse this nice viaduct in connection with the gallery and the tunnel. And then there is a signal that typically warns you that you are approaching the Untersax area. For Untersax there will be a limit to 30. That is announced here, and that will be enforced here. Quite short. And we have green light at Untersax, so we can run through this here. We have group exit signals at those passing areas here. One color light signal together with two protection signals. And after the passing area, the limit to 30 was relieved, and we can go back to our 33 kilometers per hour. Siebenhirten, the CD radar. Is that the area here? Siebenhirten? It definitely sounds like a place in the Alps. Probably not, he says, I don't know. Maybe it is a place in the Siebengebirge. Oder in Siebenbürgen. Wipers can only be turned on or off. Here's another reduction to 30 incoming. You can see the announcement. And then this sign here is the execution sign. Diagonally striped. You can also actually get our... And that was the end sign again. Vertically striped. Can also use the high beams actually in the tunnels. How do Germans call a New Year's Eve? CD Radar is asking. We are actually using the name of the saint that this day is connected with in the Roman Catholic calendar of saints. This is why we call it Sylvester. And the Czech do the same, he says. No way, so do we. Yeah. Apparently we have more in common than meets the eye, huh? So, preparing to stop at Lüen-Castiel. Always looks like we are already there, but the counter that you can see on the top of the screen is always as the crow flies. And that means especially on the mountainous railways there can be a lot of distance. First we pass the area of the mountain part of this hydroelectric power plant. From here, in real life, you can find big pipes running downhill where the water is collected to run it through turbines and create the electricity. That is then distributed by those huge power lines and pylons that we can see. A signal and slow down to 30 for Lüen-Castiel. We're actually quite ahead of our timetable. Here's already the end sign for the 30 limit. So as soon as we can leave the station area, bumper car start. If in doubt which side of the train to open, go with the one that is towards the station building. Beautiful, huh? The trees are a bit white, okay. But I can live with that. And we don't get volumetric fog down there, so we cannot cover it up with that. Wo ein Wille ist. Nein, wo ein Wille ist auch ein Weg. 1914. This is what is stated here in Fraktur. What is obviously the same thing that I use in my opening. Where there is a tiger, there is a way. Here again, those group exit signals. One light whether any train can go, and then the train that can go gets a vertical line. The train on the track that can't go has the horizontal line. You can see I did not do the collectibles on this route here. Might have something to do with the fact. What is nice that Rivet, oops, implemented the departure signals here. Depart button in our direction to St. Peter-Molinis. Let's see if we can see what signal this actually switched on. No, we cannot see it. Actually should switch on this signal here. Maybe I didn't do it right, but in general it works. Depart button pressed. Well, Maybe it shows as soon as we get a proceed signal. Close the doors. We still don't have a proceed signal, as you can see. Also, the distance signal is warning us that we don't have a proceed signal. So maybe we have to wait for an incoming train. Question is whether we are allowed to draw up to the signal, and we just do this because it is more fun. Maybe we trigger actually then set us 90, but in this case we did not. We can see our signal is still red, we cannot pass. And always a classic, we have to stop in front of those checkered boards. This is our spatting point. So when we draw up the train, we cannot go past this sign. You can also see this in the 2D map. Here is actually an additional signal that is connected with this one. So this board is a signal that can be switched for the logic of the signaling. And see, the radar said, haha, that reminded me today. I found out that in Euro Truck Simulator, the road around the Niederwarta hydroelectric power plant is now in exactly the same place as in Train SimWorld 6. I once made a comparison photo with Train Simulator in Wien, where the exact same place is located in both games. Probably the depart signal cannot be lit with a stop signal. Yeah, I think you are totally right there. This is interesting. The Niederwarta hydroelectric power plant. Yeah, this is always super interesting, where things like this end up in a game, in beautiful games like Train SimWorld 6 and Euro Truck Simulator, what is also a beautiful game, just like the American Truck Simulator. Only problem is that since I get so many DLCs for Train SimWorld 6, I almost do not have any time to catch up with other things. Yeah, I'm quite sure as soon as the train has come in and we're getting a proceed signal, then we will also get a departure signal. What is this white and green signal? And here is the train that we have been waiting for. 6:33. You see first the green, then the vertical one, and now we might actually be able to switch on the departure signal. Let's try it again. Unlock this thingy here. Departure button, and now we get the signal at least indicated here in this box, and we can actually see it here in our signaling mast, this lower one. Back to our train, releasing the brakes, and onwards we go. An increase to 35 is actually announced. This cross is the end of Shuntport. And see the red is, yeah, but STS software does it well. The base game is very cheap and only the DLCs are more expensive but still available. Yeah, I have to give you that. The prices that they charge for their DLCs, especially in sales, but also out of sales. They are much more competitive than what DTG charges you for a DLC. This is something that is really hard to understand, how the prices are fixed and how it makes sense for everybody. But this is actually a thing that cannot be disputed, as CS manages to charge significantly less for a DLC. We stop at St. Peter-Molinis. Where is the next station? Now we have this beautiful light effect in our windscreen. The sun coming over the hills, over the mountains in the background. Drop to 33. Announced. Drop to 33. Executed. The second number mentioned is, as you might have expected, for freight trains. And there actually are freight trains. There is even an aggregates gameplay pack for this route that we played last year for New Year's Eve, I think. At least for the last stream of the year. What actually has its real-world counterpart, because there is a plant just south of Arosa, we will pass it later, to process aggregate and gravel and concrete. And even in real life, trains are carrying those thingies uphill. Another reduction to 30 introduced, announced, and then executed here at the beginning of this viaduct. Where the track is cutting those little creeks and valleys. Chris R. Brown, good morning, afternoon and evening all. First time catching a live stream in a decent hour as it is 8:40 here in New Zealand. Thank you so much for appearing on the stream. Happy to have you, and a good morning to New Zealand. And Zarith, good evening, sirs. Super to have you on the stream again, Zarith. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are in the world. Zarith in Finland, Chris R. Brown in New Zealand. And us altogether driving here in Switzerland up to Arosa, the spa town of Arosa. From Chur, the capital of the canton Graubünden, in Rivet Games classic Arosalinie DLC at the time for Train Sim World, even before Train Sim World 2, and now under Train Sim World 6. At some points it is showing its age, but I think it is still a stunning and beautiful route to play. And Zarith says she's doing well, doing good. How about you, gentlemen? We are doing extremely well and relaxed, I think. Now we got the Integra Sigram alarm. You can see the yellow light. And we're sliding in for a gentle stop at St. Peter-Molinis. And as I said, if in doubt, open the doors towards the station building here to the right. What? Or you unlock both. It's totally possible here. But in case it wants it. Normally it wants it towards the station building. St. Peter-Molinis. Fürcht nicht, die Welt greift tapfer an. It says, don't fear the world. Attack things and tasks bravely. That's what they tell you here in this 1940 syllogism. And Chris O'Brown says, just got this route and all add-ons in the sale, yet to play it, though, as still enjoying and learning the new German route. Oh yeah. Well, that is the thing. The great thing about these oldish routes is that you can pick them up in a sale for bargain prices, and they are still good and offer a lot of gameplay opportunities. Sometimes even better than going for the newest things and get annoyed that there are so many bugs. So better buy an old one and get annoyed that the bugs have never been fixed since release. But then you did not pay that much money for it at any rate. Yeah, well, I think this route is definitely one that you should have. It is unique, it is a gem, and it is just beautiful to drive every now and then. Does not offer that much variety, obviously, but it offers things that not many routes can offer. Yeah. So we're not stopping at Peist, we're running through Peist to Langwies. Langwies is the station before that. Very picturesque viaduct where we switch over to the other side of the valley. The new German route Stuttgart-Heilbronn, I think you're talking about. Yeah, that is a beautiful route too, with a lot of beautiful vehicles on it. Whistle board here. And I love the whistle on this locomotive. It's actually a whistle, not a horn, not a typhon. And here you can see the crossing that the whistling was for. Limit to 30, probably for Peist. But we're not stopping at Peist, we just have to make sure. Here the 30 and execute it. Just to make sure that we can actually leave again. Yes, we got a signal. Hier at Peist. Es eilt die Zeit, Mensch sei bereit. Time is rushing. Human be ready. End of 30 limit. Captain Jerry just added this route to my wish list. Right now I enjoy Semmeringbahn. Thank you so much for appearing on the chat for the first time. And the Semmeringbahn is obviously also a gem that I would not want to miss in my collection. Here now the sun in front of us. This is why I picked this service at this hour. That we can run into the rising sun and we get all those beautiful effects in our trees, in our windscreen. Yeah, Semmeringbahn 90% off on Steam. If you don't have it yet, get it. It's not a meter gauge railway, but actually I think the first regular gauge, normal gauge railway in the mountains that was ever built, the Semmeringbahn. Special for CD Radar, because he knows it better than any one of us in real life. Austrian signaling. And CD Ray says, no, I wouldn't be so sure. Well, you never know, right? You never know. But those are the routes if you have your mind full of other things and just want to wind down. Go for a ride, Chur to Arosa, or Wiener Neustadt up to the Semmering, and down again to Mürzzuschlag. Enjoy the crisp mountain air and the beautiful views. And the winding climbing. And here we can see the Langwies Viaduct. for the first time. But the Koralmbahn is open right now, he says. Symphony of the Eurosprinter. I would not know, CD Radar. I never know those real life things. The new longest tunnel. I would have to research it. Somewhere in the back of my mind, this rings a bell. Just like the sun is coming out from behind this mountaintop over there and kissing the snow on the trees and the rails on our way up to Langwies. And this mix of shadow and sun really works extremely well on this route if you pick the correct time of day. This is why I went for custom weather, so that we don't get fog. Fog is always nice to play with, but not so fun on a stream. I think I've accepted this now finally. Limit to 30 for Langwies. Here it is executed just before we get into the station area. And rolling into Langwies, actually a bit ahead of the timetable. Taking us quite close to the exit signals here. Careful if you turn on the traction again, because those cars, those locomotives tend to jump like a bumper car. Langwies. Höhen und Tiefen ebnet die Zeit, aber sie eilet. Versteh sie und schaffe. Well, ups and downs are created by time, but it runs and rushes. So understand it and work. That is more or less what it tells you. So those station thingies are rather severe and serious and remind you that everything is over fast. And then we will go here over this viaduct that has its Christmas and holiday lighting. Lock the doors. Train lights are actually on. You cannot really see them from outside because they are a bit faint. Or they are not on. Well, then they don't need them. Can switch them on though. We got a signal. You want to know about your brake cylinder status here. This outer gauge informs you about the pressure in your brake cylinders. And here we go on the viaduct. Yes, the lights are on, but you cannot really see them from outside, can you? Oh, I cannot go out of it. And up the hill. There should be even an increase to 35 soonish. Now we are on the opposite side. Here the 35 is announced. We have to pass it with the whole train. You usually can go by the announcement board for the opposite direction that you can see the flip side of. You know when your train has passed. And now we can rush towards Litzirüti. This is one of the situations at Litzirüti where there is a speedboard missing. The announcement for a 30 reduction. You only see the execution board but no announcement. Has been like this since day one and never been fixed. Like missing speedboards, I actually cannot remember one occasion where a speedboard has been fixed after release. Still one thing that I'm working at or working on. When approaching Litzirüti, you can see very effectively how the counter sometimes counts up again, because we're actually going away from the station as the crow flies. And see, the radar says, so you said you will be hiding on Mitternacht and Silvester. Any special plans for New Year? Any news on channel, stream, website? No, we will be away from Monday to Friday. I will be back at the weekend. And for Sunday there is a stream announced. And on Monday after, this is the 5th of January, I plan on releasing one YouTube short video a day in this beta version of the German signaling course. Check out how this works. This is the project for the next year so far. And shorts are good for new viewers, you say? Well, let's see how that works. Whether it can be done like this. Here is an execution board that was not preceded. By an announcement board. So we had to slow down to 30 out of our track knowledge. Here actually we're running a bit uphill in our parking position. Let's see if the train stalls. Don't want it to stall. So, NCD Radar says, I'm super curious how you would fit a tutorial to short. Well, we will see how this works out. I actually think on explaining like 1, 2, 3 items in signaling in this short and make a lot of shorts. And if you want, you can watch more of them or just one short a day. And also re-watch the ones that you want to re-watch to refresh your memory or skip the stuff that you already know. I wonder what this guy is doing here in his suit. Looks like he's the driver and he's waiting for someone to arrive by train. Don't have a signal yet. No, we have one. And for trying not to roll back, we can have a look at this gauge here. If it is below 2 or 1.5, we can safely kick in the traction, and then we won't have the train rolling backwards when we are parked uphill. And see, the radar says, I think the length of the YouTube videos is also a factor that deters some potential viewers. Yeah, that is true. I actually like to think that my videos are made for an audience that is mature enough to decide how much of a video they want to watch and can jump around between the chapters to find what they are looking for and skip the parts that are just playing the game and driving the train. And CDR says maybe you could try separating the presentations from the gameplay. Yeah, I also thought about this. Maybe at some point I do this. So redo the presentation without the gameplay. On the other hand, the gameplay is what most of my esteemed ambassador colleagues earn their money with. So I always like to think the combination of worth is both is what makes it a bit unique. But maybe I'd try this at some point, at least for a couple of the presentations. At any rate, on January the 5th I will try with this signaling course cut into tiny bits of information, easy to digest. Just have to deal with the fact that YouTube might actually suggest them in a very weird sequence. Or put the presentation to the start of the video and then after that gameplay with practical demonstrations. This is actually how I started out. If you think back on one of the first videos explaining PZB. I tried that, but then I thought this might actually be a bit off-putting to have all the theory at front, so I picked up suggestions and I thought this was a nice idea to first get into some gameplay, then have the presentation, and then the bigger part of the gameplay. And people who don't want to watch the gameplay can just jump to the presentation right away, because typically I put chapter and jump markers into the videos. Although your audience is already people who are directly searching for this topic, we don't need to attract viewers who are not interested. That's true. Last passing area here before we get to Arosa. Well, I'm always open to try a lot of different things. Haspelgrube, I'm slowing down because the signal was at red, now it switched. And we can pass Haspelgrube. Limit increasing to 33 again. After the train has passed. And Jemmy Stuff says, I'm just looking forward to the 10-hour presentation supercut. Now that's an idea to CD radar. Well, maybe I take this as a challenge. Or maybe CD Radar takes this as a challenge. Did you see the Radar's video or a mashup of all the train sounds that I mimicked on the Preston to Carlisle route? That was epic. But I guess the 10-hour presentation is a much more tedious bit of work. So we're actually getting closer to Arosa, passing this aggregate plant on the left. This is where typically your freight runs end, at least the one from the aggregates pack. There's a lake to the left. One of the 3 lakes around Arosa. And Tiger Gamer 205 followed. Thank you so much for the follow. You're very welcome to this channel. Here is the plant, and here is also the level crossing with this quite precariously looking crossing gate here. Oop! It always looks like it's gonna pierce you, but then it doesn't. It always reminds me of those night tournaments. distance signal for coming into Arosa. We can also already see all the spa buildings. Well, not the distance signal for the last signal before we get to Arosa. Here is actually the distance signal for Arosa. Probably giving us now our Integra signum. This 35 is actually wrong. Should be a 30. Because when getting into Arosa we should be limited to 30. And at the end of the tunnel we are entering Arosa station. Here's the execution sign for the announced 35, but it is actually an announced 30. What's also nice is that you can play all those run-around services for getting the locomotive to the other end of your train when you're going back down to Chur. So this is the red signal that was announced by the double yellow when entering the tunnel. And here we are, ladies and gents. We have made it to Arosa. Get off the train, grab your dressing gown and go into, not the Luftseilbahn, but go into the spa or jump into the, what is it, the upper lake here, I think. There's the lower lake at the other side of the tunnel. Arosa Bergbahnen, in real life, there will be a cable car that can transport you further up the mountain. And if you don't want to go further up the mountain, then you can go in one of those buildings, hotels, resorts, and enjoy the spa town of Arosa in the Graubünden Alpen. Train has arrived. Beautiful sun and snow, no speeding. 0000. Oh, I actually was a bit out of my place here. But this got us nicely up here. An old route can be picked up for bargain prices on a sale, but a gem and beautiful even under Train Symbol 6. And with Tiger Gamer 205 following, guys, we actually have 200 followers on the channel now. So thank you so much for this, for the ongoing support. And we will have to find a way how to celebrate this. 200 followers on Twitch. Copenhagen. No, we're not going to Denmark. We're not going to Denmark. And, well, almost no stream without a presentation, right? I have prepared a little presentation that gives us an idea where we're actually running around in this beautiful world of ours. And I want to show you that. Don't worry, it will only take a couple of minutes. Here. The Arosalinie and the Berninalinie where we are going now. What we did, we started at Chur and went to Arosa along the Arosalinie up the mountains. What you can see here on the map is more or less the southeastern part of Switzerland. Most of the land that you can see here is Graubünden, the canton Graubünden, with its capital in Chur. You can see a bit of St. Gallen, Glarus, and this is Schwyz and Uri, I think, other cantons in Switzerland. The bigger line here is the national border to Italy, here in the bottom and bottom right half of the screen. This is getting us to the beautiful country of Italy, and what we have here is Austria. Naturpark Ötztal, here the Ötztaler Alpen that you might connect with finding Ötzi, the Iceman, the oldest known natural mummy ever found in Europe in the year 1991, I think. That was more or less around here. Well, we're not going there. We are getting into our helicopter and have us transported to the Ospizio Bernina, where we start our downhill run on the Berninalinie to Tirano, what is just, as you can see, across the border to Italy. We are going in this, well, tube-like part of Graubünden of Switzerland down the hill until we cross the border just before we arrive at Tirano and then be in Italy. This is the Berninalinie, the DLC for Trainsim World 4 originally, I think. Now Trainsim World 6, also a beautiful route that needs a bit love in some respect, but it is a beautiful route by itself. So if you can pick that up in a sale, don't hesitate. In real life, the route is longer. It starts in St. Moritz or ends in St. Moritz and connects St. Moritz with Tirano. But this part is not in the Trainsim World 6 DLC, unfortunately. And you can see this is a significant part of the route, especially if you compare it with the length of the route in Arosa. Maybe we get it at some point in time, but I doubt it a bit that the Rivet will pick this up again. Yeah, that is what I wanted to show you so that we all know where we are running around. And now I'm changing the DLC markers from Arosa to Bernina, A to B. And where are we capturing here? And the service is a different one. Obviously, with so many DLCs, it's getting a bit difficult to keep track, but I manage, and no time pressure today since it is the last stream of the year. Ospizio Bernina to Tirano, we are running downhill now after we went uphill in the first service of the day. Now we're running downhill. We only have one timetable, we only have one train, the Allegra train 10 whatever, what did I say, 10:38. This is the one again. Custom weather, clear. Here we can have some volumetric fog. Let's have some snowflakes coming down to us. Let's have a lot of snow on the ground. Slightly clouded and a lot of wind so that we can see the trees moving. We're starting at minus 9.6 degrees and jump into the service right now. Here you can see minus 90% Semmeringbahn on the winter sale. If you don't have it, grab it. Same goes for the new incarnation of the Long Island Railroad, 90%. That makes those routes a real bargain for the money that you have to pay for them with 90% off. No die, no rain, make weather. No, today we are having snow and sun and no fog.
Allegra, liebe Fahrgäste. Das Zugteam der Rätischen Bahn begrüßt Sie im Regionalzug nach Alp Grüm, Caviglia, Poschiavo, Prese, Miralago, Brusio, Campascio, Campocologno, Tirano und wünscht eine angenehme Reise. Bei Fragen stehen wir Ihnen gerne zur Verfügung.
Allegra. Signore e signori, il personale di bordo della ferrovia retica vi dà il benvenuto a bordo del nostro regio servizio per Alp Grüm, Caviglia, Poschiavo, Le Prese, Miralago, Brusio, Campascio, Campocologno, Tirano e vi augura buon viaggio. In caso di domande, riferitevi al personale di bordo.
Allegra, ladies and gentlemen, the train crew of the Rhaetian Railway welcomes you on board our Regio service to Alp Grüm, Caviglia, Poschiavo, Le Prese, Miralago, Brusio, Campascio, Campocologno, Tirano, and wishes you a pleasant journey. If you have any questions, the train crew will be happy to answer them for you.
Yes, there are announcements. Rivet were actually way ahead of the train announcements. They have the announcements in their Scottish stuff. They have their announcements here on the Swiss stuff, in the Berninalinie. But look at that. Well, the sun here in this crisp mountain air on the lake. This is just too beautiful, so that you forget to close your doors. And now we're running downhill to Alp Grüm. We might need to release the brakes so that we can actually go. Listen to that sound, it's really nice. I think as long as we're here in the station, we might be limited to 30, not entirely sure. But as soon as we are out here, I think we can accelerate to 45. Only thing that you should not do is you should not trust the cruise control here on this train. He will always overshoot. And don't trust the speedboards on your way up. Signaling and speedboards is quite erroneous on this route. And I was always hoping that it can be fixed at some time. Forum member Amy in Orbit actually made a spreadsheet and sent it to Jasper of Rivet about all the mistakes in speedboards and the signaling, but it did not lead to any fixes, unfortunately, and I doubt that Rivet will fix that anytime soon. So we will have to live with that, but the route is beautiful. Limit to 40 coming in around this bend. It is announced, it is executed now, it is executed here. But look at this lake. And the end of the limit to 40. What a surprise. The CD radar. And brakes to the left. Now that would be a challenge. Yeah, true. But to be honest, on all the Swiss stuff, I would not want to put my hand into the fire that the cap is anything close to the real thing. Stadler rail switched off in reduction to 35 incoming. Now actually mix in some vacuum brakes. They are definitely not the most forthcoming in terms of cooperation with making things. I should not have put in the brakes before we get here into the decline, and you might have seen it on the sign that announces the decline or the descent. It is 3.5% of descent here in the tunnel. Now it's less severe, only 0.7%. Reduction to 25 announced. And what I do, I punch in like a minimum of vacuum brakes, and the rest I control with the dynamics, with the dynamic brakes, with the power brake handle. So into the next tunnel. Here we are limited to 25.
In wenigen Minuten erreichen wir den einzigartigen Aussichtspunkt Alp Grüm auf 2091 Metern. Mit Sicht auf den Palü-Gletscher und den Piz-Palü. Hier eröffnet sich ein herrlicher Blick über das Poschiavo, das Val Poschiavo. In der Ferne spiegelt sich die Wasserfläche des Poschiavo-Sees.
Pochi minuti raggiungeremo l'esclusivo punto panoramico Alp Grüm, che a 2091 metri offre una vista del ghiacciaio del Palù e il Piz Palù. Qui si apre allo sguardo una magnifica vista su Poschiavo da Val Poschiavo. In lontananza si specchiano le acque del lago di Poschiavo. In lontananza si specchiano le acque del lago di Poschiavo.
In a few minutes, we will reach the unique viewing point Alp Grüm, which, at the height of 2,091 meters, looks over the Palù Glacier and the Piz Palù. Here, a spectacular vista opens over the the Poschiavo Valley. In the distance, the waters of the lake of Poschiavo are reflected.
Yes, we get the announcement in German, in Italian, and then in English. We don't get announcement in Romansch, what would be the third official language in Graubünden, in this canton that we are running about. As far as my knowledge goes, Graubünden has 3 official languages: German, Italian, and Romansch. What seems to be the only place in the world that has Romansch as an official language. Graubünden. And one of 2 cantons that has Italian as an official language in Switzerland. Dear passengers, the CD radar, don't miss the discounts in our souvenir shop. Yeah. This is why we are taking you down here. Well, those are amazing. What about the tiger merch? Well, there is no tiger merch. I don't think anyone would ever buy tiger merch. AJ gave me actually a plush tiger with a little shirt that says Tiger Ways on its back and off black on the chest. Very nice. Right. Now we're running down in this gallery and we will arrive at Alp Grüm very soon. We're a bit late because I dawdled a bit around the icy lake that I like so much. Can already hear the people talking. Alp Grüm, ladies and gentlemen, Alp Grüm. Isn't that the place where you can enjoy a piece of pizza? Yeah, I like that they built the interior of this restaurant, even though it seems a bit deserted. Thank you, CD Radar, for blocking this guy who wanted to sell some viewers. So, here we get the departure signal automatically. Stablini passing loop is a tricky one. I think the signal there is not the correct one that you get when entering. The group exit signals work a bit differently on this DLC as compared to Arosalinie. We might get back to that in a bit. Now just look how close the two tracks here are together. They are so close together that the two tracks can actually not be used by two trains at the same time. And this arrangement has been used for the simple reason to get the trains around the corner and into the station. But it can't be used by two trains at the same time. So I forgot the limit. Actually, I limited myself to 25 except instead of 30. That was for me. Because for some reason I thought I am a freight train, but I'm not. So 30 is the limit that we have to adhere to. And we have to stop at the Stablini passing loop. And I think this is a good occasion to explain how the group exit signals work here. And it is a sure spat typically for everyone who's doing this for the first time, because you cannot really see your spat marker properly. And you get lured into it by an all clear signal, and then you think you can rush through, and then you can't. But I think from cap views that I've watched, that you should get a different signal when entering this loop. But it's also really great for this snow and sun environment is how soft the train noises are. Like, it's just like this humming and sliding and creaking a bit. Distance signal here that lets us expect an all clear signal, and we are getting an all clear signal here instead of a double yellow short run signal here in the tunnel. A single green lamp that is Fahrtbegriff number 1. That should actually allow us to run through the passing loop. But we better do not do this. At the moment we cannot see the passing loop, but soon we will be able to see it. Here it is already. We're going into the left side of the passing loop. And I'm taking it really easy, because it's all the time so easy to blotch this, because at this point you're picking up a lot of speed going into the descent. And the spat marker can be seen really late. The game wants us to get very close to it. At the moment we cannot really see the marker where we are supposed to stop. Now we can. It is coming into view from behind that mast. We have to approach it and then stop here. And why do we have to stop here? Let's explain that. The signal that is ruling the exit of this passing loop is this one here. It is the signal C, shows red. That is already quite difficult to see because it is far away. And why do we have to stop here now? This is our stop marker. This is the equivalent of the white and red checkerboard that we know from Arosa, but in a different look and with a different system. And this thing pointing downwards says here and not further on, and the number 1 corresponds with the number 2 here on the other track. And why do we need number 1 and number 2 on the tracks? Because those group exit signals do not have protection signals, unlike the ones on Arosa that tell us which track is actually allowed to go. But the kind of signal aspect that is shown on the signals shows us which track can go. And in Swiss signaling, the System L, the proceed aspects are numbered, Fahrtbegriff 1, Fahrtbegriff 2, and so on. There actually used to be like 5 of them. One of them is no longer in use, but 1 and 2 is what we know from German signaling as HP1 and HP2, more or less. One is the single green HP1, Fahrtbegriff Nummer 1, that allows us to go with full speed, and the other one will be HP2, Fahrtbegriff Nummer 2, that will be green-yellow, that allows us to go 40, typically here on those meter gauge railways with 30. And the numbers on those stopping boards correspond with the proceed aspects. So if the signal is showing a single green, Fahrtbegriff 1, then the left lane can go. If it is showing green and yellow, then the right lane can go. And now it shows a single green, that means we can go. And if you look at the 2D map, here are the corresponding artificial signals. Visible signals. And now we're running downhill. To a stop that I would pronounce Caviglia. The Italian voice sometimes tends to pronounce it Caviglia. What would be the correct way to pronounce it if the G and the L would be turned around, I think. So I don't know if the name in Italian is actually different, or the Italian woman reading the announcement got it wrong, or somebody gave her a sheet with an error. This has been bugging me since I first played this route. But before we get to Caviglia or Caviglia, we have to pass through 3 serpentines in the steepest part of the valley that we have to traverse. Passing Cadera, what is also a passing loop flash station, where you typically do not stop, and where the signaling is a bit weird in my opinion. This beep that you can hear is the SYSTE safety systems. What is the CFA equivalent? Vigilance system that requires you to press a button every predefined length of time. While we are passing this croft. On our way down to Caviglia. Now another turnaround. You always have to be wary for the speed that the train picks up or loses depending on the gradient. And this route definitely does the volumetric fog. Consist-wise, also quite interesting. We have a 3-car EMU and 3 rail cars attached to it, so that we have actually 6 vehicles in the train, and an EMU with additional cars. Cadera is behind Caviglia. I always mix this up, but very correct. We first get to Caviglia.
Nächster Halt, Caviglia.
Prossima fermata, Caviglia.
Next stop, Caviglia.
See, the Italian voice is Caviglia. So maybe she got a sheet with a mistake. Or she got it wrong herself. We're getting sent into the Fahrtbegriff 2 line. We got a green and yellow distance signal. Station areas are typically flat so that we can release the vacuum brakes. They're branching off. This is why we got the green and yellow for. And arrive at Caviglia only a bit behind time. Caviglia, ladies and gentlemen. One plateau-like area here. We're going into a steep descent again with serpentines. And what you can read, this station building here is actually a listed UNESCO cultural heritage site. And now, so that we can actually go, we need Fahrtbegriff 1, and that we have. Speed in the station area is actually 45 for a short time. But soon we have to slow down to 30. Snake biters, nice to see you. Hey Tiger, where you see this? Here's the execution sign for the 30. And now, while passing this level crossing for especially bikers, cyclists, we can turn on our minimum brakes again and go into the tunnel. Hope you had a nice Christmas, Tiger Racer said. Yes, we had a very nice, quiet and beautiful Christmas with the family. I hope you guys and you snake biters especially had a nice Christmas too. Wherever in the world you dwell. We had Finland, we had New Zealand, we had the Czech Republic, obviously. Tonight already on the stream. Turning around. Not yet. And Snakebutter says, I'm so determined to not use a HUD that on World of Subways 3 London Underground Circle line that I'm having to route learn the speed limits, as you say, no chance of slowing in time otherwise. I've even got a map of it and writing where the speed limits are on. Yeah, that is good. That is great. I love to hear that. I can now do the whole Hammersmith branch though. 10 stations were no HUD and almost don't need my map for it. It's more so I don't forget them later down the line mostly. Yeah. And the good thing is when you're actually writing down this map, then the fact or the process of writing the map actually gets all the things in a row in your brain, and then you can remember them more easily. I'm sure it will. The thing is, after learning a route like this, you got everything in your brain, and then you're driving a different route, and after a couple of weeks or months you go back and you think you've forgotten everything, but after driving it again things tend to come back. Passing a signal for a change. Oh, I love those mountain ridges, and here the volumetric fog, this slight overlay of the volumetric fog actually does a lot to improve the impression of depth. The way I see it is train drivers don't get a hut in real life. True, true, true. So we shouldn't either, really. The one you have is fine. It's more the other stuff. Feels like cheating almost with a full hut. Yeah. Sometimes I actually experimented with turning the other things off too. What you could totally do here, because I mostly need it for knowing when to stop, and for that you should have a thing like Ebola on German routes anyway, or some sort of document that tells you where to stop. But the problem is nobody can see what I'm actually doing with my controls if I have it turned off like this. And yeah, I think it is nice that everyone can check what brake systems I'm using in what way and what safety systems, and you can rewatch situations that went wrong and you can see what you actually did or what the game thought that you were doing. So this is why I like to have it on. It's also good for streaming too, as it's like having passenger information for the viewers. Yeah, totally. Totally. And people dropping in the stream can see where we are and where we are going and what service it is sometimes. Only thing is that you cannot indulge that much in external shots, because now you don't see what your train is doing. Yes, Snakebite is loving the snow. So am I. The snow and the sun on it. And the mountains, yes. Yeah, so with all the niggles that are still in this route here, it is also one of those routes that I would not want to miss. Driving downhill though is not as relaxing as driving uphill, because you always have to be cautious with your train. Then you run into a flat piece like here, and then all of a sudden you go across the brink, and then you have to get your brakes on again. No, there is no way. Well, there is a cruise control on this train, but you cannot really trust it. It always overshoots and then pulls the speed back. So you can use it as a limiter when driving uphill, but when driving downhill it is more or less like a like a reminder where the speed should be, more than actually limiting it. If only they let us do the AWS and DST from an external view. We are on most routes nowadays. I think you can hear at least the sounds. But there are some locomotives still. So here is the Integra Signum alarm. You can see the yellow light flashing. Oh, it's Alex. Hey, Tiger. Nice to see you on this last stream for the year. Now we're getting the yellow over yellow signal. That is a short run signal indicating that we don't have full braking distance. We get another Integra Signum, or, well, it's not Integra Signum, it's ZSI 90. To be fair, alarm. So we have to prepare for the signal at the end of this Cadera passing area here to be at red. This is why I am distracted of the chat at the moment. And also the distance signals here are double yellow as far as we can see them behind the masts, indicating that the exit signal is red. And that means we have to prepare to stop at our stop marker, but funny enough, the signal is not red. It shows Fahrtbegriff 2, and we are on the line that needs Fahrtbegriff 2, so we can pass. So this is a bit weird. This passing area here has a signaling that should be looked into. Don't think this is prototypical. Anyway, we're going on. Better this way than the other way around. And now back to the chat. And Snakebiter says could probably deal with the rest, but really need to be able to acknowledge them from outside. Yeah, well, if you hear it, you can acknowledge it, I guess. And anyone I know that remotely likes trains, I've been trying to get them to get Train World 6. They don't know what they are missing, honestly. Well, I did not know before I got Train World 2 for free on the Epic Game Store. I was totally not into trains at all. And Alex says, how are you? It's been a long time. Yeah, that is true. Hope you and everyone had a great Christmas. Yeah, I hope you had a great Christmas too, Alex. And it's a good time to return to the stream for the end of the year. Oh, I was still in. Okay. We're approaching Poschiavo. Poschiavo is probably the biggest station, and this is where we get out of this really, really steep mountainous climbing in going back and forth in serpentines, and more or less running in a straight line down the valley until we get to Miralago, from where we can go steeper again. And And Snakebiter says, that happened to me when I started playing Microsoft Train Simulator all those years ago. Never could leave train sims alone after. I didn't even know I'd be into it. Either, to be honest, it's so fun to drive them, and I think we like the challenge. Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, for me, I was starting with Sandpatch Grade, and driving those heavy trains across Sandpatch Grade was so calming that I could not let it go again. And then I started digging into the matter and trying to understand everything that was happening in the game, and this is really a great opportunity to learn about things that that had been happening around you all the time and you never paid attention to it. And Alex says, I hope 2026 will be good for you all. Yes, I hope it will be great for you too, Alex, and everybody else. The Snakebiter says, I've heard freight is harder, so that's impressive you started with that. Well, it is in a way controlling those heavy trains downhill can be more challenging, but on the other hand, like being on a tight timetable, stopping a lot, always getting the correct braking distance on your passenger trains is not an easy thing too, so it has both its challenges. And Sandpatch Grade is just a really great route. And I like the voice acting that is in the scenarios there. And you really got this feeling of these heavy-duty American railroads, crisp air in the 70s or 80s, or whenever this is located. And Snakebiter says, yeah, I'm starting to get very tempted by freight. Yep. Of course, when you really dig into it, then you get to the limitations of the game, and then you can talk to people who are really driving a hardcore Run 8 servers, and how much more challenging it actually is. Gotta slow down to 25 here. Don't forget this. For this little viaduct here. And then I can go back to 30, I guess, when we're through here. And Captain Jerry says, I had Microsoft Train Sim in a big box many years ago. Back when I didn't know what I was doing, but I have fond memories of it. Those are the experience, guys, that you have. Oops, that was probably a bit early. Microsoft Train Simulator was definitely before my time. And Alex says, I've started playing Train Sim World because I love trains, and now I play a lot. Microsoft Flight Sim, trains and planes are so cool. Thanks video games for allowing to drive these beasts, and thank you for the 2026 wishes. Snakebiters, it's like the next challenge. And Snakebiters, they have an ultra-realistic ship simulator coming soon to called Seafarer. Oh yeah, I've got it on my wish list. Don't know if I will ever be able to play it, but I got it. Amazing, says Alex. And Snakebiter says, and they also have Starship Simulator 2, which is like something straight out of Star Trek. And you have to start it from cold and dark with a proper checklist. So that's cool. Train, ships, planes are the perfect team. Captain Gary says, I believe there is an open source re-implementation of the Microsoft Train Sim. It's still being kept alive. Yeah, those. If that is possible, that is always Great. And Snakebiter says, I agree with Alex. Snakebiters, check out Orbit to Sim and a re-entry if you ain't seen them too. Open Rails. Is Open Rails the open version of Microsoft Train Sim? See? I've heard about Open Rails, but I wasn't aware that it is Microsoft Train Sim. So, now we made it to the bottom of this wall here. We came up from high up in the mountains and are now approaching Poschiavo. Soon enough we will be able to accelerate a little bit. Now that we have this open terrain around us. Snakebiter says he went hunting for all the good sims. And the re-entry is amazing.
In Kürze treffen wir in Poschiavo, dem Hauptort des Tals, ein. 3 Türme prägen das Ortsbild. Die reformierte Barockkirche, das Rathaus und die Stiftskirche San Vittore mit ihrem imposanten romanischen Turm. Von denjenigen Gästen, die hier aussteigen, möchten wir uns verabschieden. Wir danken Ihnen und wünschen einen schönen Aufenthalt in Poschiavo.
Stiamo appena arrivando a Poschiavo, il capoluogo della valle. Si possono osservare le 3 torri che sono un'attrazione storica e emblematica della città. Una è la chiesa barocca della Riforma, una appartiene al municipio e una alla chiesa di San Vittore. Auguriamo ai passeggeri che ci lasciano qui una piacevole visita a Poschiavo e grazie per aver viaggiato con noi.
There's no English announcement here. So we're doing re-entry from the mountainside into Poschiavo. Now they are discussing the orbitisms on the chat. Space missions.
Nächster Halt, Poschiavo.
Prossima fermata, Poschiavo.
Next stop, Poschiavo.
Yes, and here we are at Poschiavo. We're running in with a quite steep descent until we pass this hall to the left, and then we are aligned for the platform on more or less level ground. Bye bye, Alex. Thank you for dropping in. Yeah. If you fall asleep on our train here as a passenger, no problem at all. I will take you safely to Italy. Now we are still in Switzerland, Graubünden, Poschiavo, main town, the main settlement of this valley. This valley that belongs to Switzerland, and that is like a bit of a hatch that goes into Italy. I have a signal, I can go. And actually with 50 or something, I think. 55 even. But I have to be careful because we're getting a double yellow. That means in this passing area we probably have to let the train that is coming from the bottom of the valley pass first. And again, don't miss the spat markers here. If you're used to drawing up to the signal, then this can be quite confusing. ASRTO, nice to see you. Now here we actually got two separate signals for both lanes. What are you doing today? I'm actually showing off Arosa and Bernina in the snow and the sun. We already did our run from Chur to Arosa uphill, and now we are doing the downhill run from Ospizio Bernina to Tirano in Italy. And the guys are discussing Orbiter Sims. We stop at Le Prese, not at Li Curt. Limit to 30 announced. And at the same time we are going into tramway part. Means we need rear view mirrors. Here is where the 30 limit starts. 55 limit increasing to 60 for a short while, so we can rush through here. But I have to slow down to 40 again. For this bend. Back to 50. It's a very dynamic speed profile here. And slow down to 35 again. And accelerate to 55. Limit to 30 incoming. And here we always have to switch off the safety systems for a tiny bit after we pass this magnet here. Otherwise we always get an unwanted and unmerited penalty break. And now the 30 for Le Prese.
Nächster Halt, Le Prese.
Prossima fermata, Le Prese.
Next stop, Le Prese.
So we're actually quite ahead of the timetable. So no need to rush anything. And Yeri says it would be neat if they could add real life weather and real time clocks so you could jump into an existing train, yeah. Thing is, a lot of that can be done with the API that is on the market, or has been on the market for a couple of months, no? So at least the real life weather could work like this. And the real-time clock shouldn't be a problem either. The Prese we are. Legs are a bit stiff. A lot of hotels are here. Why we need to go all the way to the end of the platform here? Well, that's Swiss precision, probably. And then we will go and hug the lake until we get to the other end of the lake at Miralago, and then we can tackle the last part of the run down into the valley. Increase to 35 incoming. Increase to 45 incoming. So, now we're getting closer to Miralago. And ASRTO, you're driving in Bernina to end of year. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Die nächste Station hat nur einen Bahnsteig. Bitte seien Sie vorsichtig, wenn Sie den Zug verlassen.
We're ending the year in Italy.
Prossima fermata, Miralago.
Dr. 35 announced.
Ha un solo binario. Preghiamo di fare attenzione mentre si scende dal treno.
Next stop, Miralago. The next station has a single platform. Please take care when leaving the train.
How much till we reach Tirano? I think it's about like 40 minutes. We have to travel down the last bit of the valley around that circular viaduct, and then we're almost there. So first we are at Miralago. Let me check. There's a post 12:23. Yeah, that's half an hour. Oops. Half an hour according to the timetable that we're supposed to be at Tirano. Miralago is a funny name, he says. And City Racers hope we get some route to Nuremberg to celebrate start of the new year. Well, in Spanish it sounds like look like Miralago. I think that's the idea, right? It's a place where you can have a nice look at the lake, like sea view or lake view. So, and now down, we have to stop at Brusio. At the Brusio. See the rate, I would love to get a route that gets us to Nuremberg. I only have one in Trains in World Classic. Yes, I have seen the Christmas announcement from the Simulator guys. Unfortunately, it does not show properly on Steam for me without activating a lot of cookies that I don't want to activate. On the Simrail website I did not find this announcement, but I am definitely looking forward to whatever new stuff comes along with Simrail. And they announced a new route, they announced a new locomotive, they announced a new core update, so a lot of interesting things. That we can look forward to. And apparently it is already supposed to happen in January and February. I did not expect Trains in World like DLC release frequently for Simrace. Yeah, I did not either. Let's see what comes along there. We can retract our mirrors again, I think. And if my insider info is not wrong, M2 Warszawa metro line for March in Simrail. Really? CD Radar wants more ETCS trains in Simrail. Definitely! They invested so much in their implementation of ETCS, and it is one of the big points that they are so much ahead compared to Trains in World with the ETCS and the unknown EMU. Yeah, the not specified EMU might be an ETCS train. They actually have to make use of it on more trains, not only on the Pendolino. And the Warszawa metro line for Simrail. That would be interesting how this interconnects with the rest of the game. So far, everything they did connect route-wise to the rest of the map that they had. Will be interesting to see.
In Kürze fahren wir über den berühmten Kreisviadukt von Brusio. Über ihm drehen wir, ähnlich wie in den Kehrtunnels, eine Schleife. Entlang der Kehrschleife sind runde, iglu-ähnliche Steinhaufen zu sehen, welche früher als Speicher für Wein und Käse dienten.
Tra pochi minuti attraverseremo il famoso viadotto circolare di Brusio. A questo edificio il treno percorre nuovamente un anello per perdere o guadagnare quota, come nei tunnel a spirale dopo Bergamo. I tumuli di pietra, simili ai gru sottostanti, furono usati per conservare vino.
Yeah. Those things, unfortunately, are not in the DLC as far as I can see. And ASRTU says as far as he knows it could be mainly a Nivak Impulse, so a Polish train, or a Stadler Flirt 3. That would be interesting. As far as I know, Dovetail Games has a really hard difficulties to get anything from Stadler Rail. So it would be cool if the Simrail guys could get that. There was a legend that Dovetail Games has a Flirt train more or less ready in their drawers, but they cannot use them because they don't get the licensing from Stadler Rail.
Nächster Halt, Brusio.
Prossima fermata, Brusio.
Next stop, Brusio.
Brusio. And here we are, Brusio. And there is a train waiting for us at Brusio. Let's hope we're getting routed to the right track. Yes, we are. How far do you want us to go, actually? Here at Brusio. Oh, this other train actually has some freight cars attached. And there's RTU says the M2 has an interchange at Warszawa station, which we have in-game, but you can guess it might be different services. They're completely separate networks and they don't physically connect there. That's true. I wonder if you can actually walk there then, as a player. Captain Yeri says, I'm surprised the train doesn't slip at these gradients. Yeah, well, if you want the train to slip, you just have to yank in the dynamic brakes and the train will slip. So you gotta be careful a bit with the brakes and then it should work well and the train should not slip. So we actually got a signal and a clearance for departure. We got our Fahrbegriff too, so we actually can leave. That is great. And now we're going around the circular viaduct that was announced before. And these out here did put a long statement in the chat. I'm saying both because Impulse and Flirt 3 is what they are made for Pro Simulator for LKA, and they've talked about this EMU is used around Lodge. So, and well, one of the sneak peeks they did for the German DLC, which was like a recording and reference strip, they took some references of the Impulse. And from the Flirt, they literally have a real front end of it at their office for a contract they're making for LKA. So, oh, that actually might give them a better connection to Stadler Rail then. So look at this circular viaduct, isn't that sweet? Here's a spot where a train likes to stall. But be wary because we're picking up speed soon enough. Like here. And I don't know whether we might see GSMR in SimRail soon, as in real life in Poland. GSMR operation officially started in some sections on the 14th of December. Mainly it started in the Vichev section we have in-game. It's actually which Warszawa DLC tracks. I see. Well, that will be even better. It's already great what they have in radio communication in SimRail. Another big point where they can easily surpass Trains and World Tech. So we're running now into Campascio.
Nächster Halt, Campascio.
Prossima fermata, Campascio.
Next stop, Campascio.
Before we get to Campascio, we will have to pass a freight terminal that can always give you a bit of a scare because it has a red signal that looks as if it was supposed to be for you, but it isn't. Ah, it's not Campascio. Campocologno, it is. Campascio is that one here. There is no signal. We just stop. It's a very short stop here. Very short platform. Dum. It's a CD reader. They also made a pretty cool implementation of GSMR for the Pro Sims. They even made like a PowerPoint for it public. Bombastic. Well, this combination of making Pro Sims and sim games has something to it, I guess. Campocologno, this is what I was talking about. And driving downhill on the Berninalinie is definitely something where you can train your ability to focus on not overspeeding. I mean, both route DLCs we just got are basically ports from the routes they are making for LKA. Okay. Well, that explains how they can do it and sell their game for the money that they ask for it, and work like 3/4 of a year before releasing a new DLC. Well, they should definitely go on with what they are doing, because what they are doing is great. LKA, now he explains it, ASRTU is the regional operator of a voivodeship.
Nächster Halt, Campocologno.
Prossima fermata, Campocologno.
Next stop, Campocologno.
Getting a Fahrtbegriff 2 erwarten hier. This is this interesting level crossing where we just drive across the street or the road. Probably not urbane enough to call it a street. Here to the left is the container terminal. And this red signal is in real life typically switched off from what I've seen from cab rides. Now we're just driving across the road, entering the station at Campocologno. And all the cars have to wait. Am I planning on making SimRail streams when the CD 163 drops? I definitely plan on making SimRail streams. The fact that I didn't do any more SimRail streams just has to do with the fact that I was bombarded by Train Sim World DLCs. But I definitely want to go to do some SimRail streams again, and especially if there are new vehicles, new stuff to discuss. So maybe this is the occasion to do a SimRail special stream again. Now that we got 200 followers on Twitch, maybe I can use this in January when the locomotive is there. Well, allow me, says City Radar. I still have to see you dispatch in the great mayhem that are Kolushki and Skierniewice stations. Skierniewice, probably. Well, at the moment I am hard put enough to just pronounce those stations, and dispatching was never my strong suit. This is where CD Radar can excel. So, now, slowly but steadily we are getting to Italy. Absolutely not, he says. And ASRTU says they are tiny computer dispatch posts which have 2 screens to show the entire station area. Oh, that sounds challenging at best. I have no idea how to operate that old crap. So, now we're actually approaching, or already in, the only part of Italy that is so far in train sim world. Not really rule-wise, because this part of the Ratian Railway still follows Swiss signaling rules for obvious reasons, but we are on Italian soil either already or soonish. The dev said to make a new difficulty just for Skierniewice and Koluszki. Okay. So I got to pay attention a bit here. Now we're going to be a tram service again. And we are slowing down to 25 when we're running into the city here. And already, now there is the begin sign for the tram service. ZDRA says you can handle a difficulty level of Grodzisk and then nothing more. And I can handle a difficulty level of those posts on the high-speed line where you don't have anything else to do but dispatch the trains from left to right and right to left. So this is still on the list of things that need to be looked into. Now we have to slow down to 15. While we're sneaking through the old town past the church. On our last meters of this stream. I mean, you need 36 hours of dispatching to be able to even enter those 2 posts. Alright. Well, it's not a bad thing that they make things that are so difficult. Theater says, but of course, I'm also excited about Czech additions to railway games next year. Yeah. Czech guys are hungry. So, getting out of the 15 and getting out of the tramway part again. Whistle sign passing this signal that can be a main signal or a distance signal. At the moment it is showing us a green light and it's good. Liberec Day 1 is this, yeah. That's the must. Soon as I know the release date, I will have to dig in. And now we got a green distance signal and the main signal is still at red. Signaler! Allow us to enter. What are you doing?
Nächster Halt, Tirano.
Prossima fermata, Tirano.
Next stop, Tirano.
And I still love how the devs, instead of fixing the tracks, having the track curve made wrong, like taking at one point, just instead they just put a temporary speed restriction, like if they were wrong. Alright. So much information that you have. And we are rolling into Tirano, the part of the station that accommodates our meter gauge trains. To the right is the part of the station that accommodates the standard gauge trains. So as a passenger you can just switch, or in the game obviously not. And this is the only station in Train Sim World for Italy, I think. Maybe the one in the city is also in Italy. Well, and it is definitely the only station in the game that we are stopping at today. At any rate, we made it down the hill in one piece without spatting. And you say in Italy, in Simrail we have Italy. I just condense it in big text and you condense your info into cute PowerPoints. Great. Do you have Italy in Simrail? Is that so? Ah, in Warsaw. Wochi station counts as Wochi, and Wochi is Italy. Well, I did not know that. This here is Italy, not only by name, but also by nature. Beautiful station plaza with people sitting in the snow having a coffee. There's also Warszawa, Prague, which is not similar, but also not in Prague. No, that's okay. You have that actually quite a lot in bigger cities, that you have stations named after the city that the trains go to when they leave this station, and not necessarily where they are, the stations. Guys, thank you so much for staying with me. This is where this stream here ends, with a lot of snow, with a lot of sun arrived in Italy. Closing the doors, checking out. No speeding. I actually managed to get this train down the hill in 1 hour 48, 45 without gliding across the line. That is always a challenge for my capacity to focus on what I'm doing. And CD Radar, so Mr. Tiger, we wish you the fastest internet without interruptions in the new year. Health for you and your animals. Hopefully we will meet on the railway in the years to come. Thank you so much. I wish you guys all the best, especially you, CD Radar, ASR to you, and whoever might be left on the chat for tonight. And yeah, the most important thing is the health for the animals and ourselves. And hopefully we will meet on the railway in the years to come. Yeah. ASR to you, thank you so much for all the insight in SimRail. I'm looking forward to whatever will be released there. And yeah, best of the best for you guys. And see you next year. Bye-bye.